welcome to PharmacyToDose, the critical care podcast. And I'm your host, Nick Peters. Wherever you are and however you are listening, thank you. And of course, back live from New Orleans for Monday's mini recap. And for today, what we're going to do is talk a little bit about and give basically highlights and a review of the ASHP Midyear Residency Showcase. So we'll go into fun facts, rules I hate. We'll get into that in just a second. What was it like outside the door? What about for the programs who were right inside the door? What was it like when the doors opened at 1 o'clock? Top things overheard at the showcase. Most unique program outfits. And we're also going to include in there a record for number of badge tags that I saw on the same badge. Best giveaways, general thoughts, questions I still have. And then one thing that I did throughout the showcase was ask anonymously people to use one word to describe the showcase, both like program directors and preceptors, but also prospective candidates, students and residents. So we'll have some fun going into that. So hope you enjoy the Monday mini recap from New Orleans and the 2024 ASHP Midyear Clinical Meeting. And it starts right now.
Sephora's biggest sale of the year is on. Get 20% off the best gifts, including makeup from brands like Rare Beauty.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
20% off skincare from brands like Glow Recipe and Summer Fridays.
These are my fave.
20% off hair care like Way and K18.
I'm obsessed.
And 20% off fragrances like Valentino, Donna, Born, and Roma.
So good.
20% off your purchase. Now through December 15th. Shop now at Sephora and Sephora at Kohl's.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/campaign to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Okay, we are here talking about the Residency Showcase review. And let's start off with some fun facts. So the showcase was initially called the Residency Preceptor Showcase. And of course, now it is called the Residency Showcase. And as we were looking into this, the first ASHP Midyear Clinical Meeting was in Washington, D.C. at the Mayflower Hotel. That's a fun fact you can drop on everybody. But as we were going into this, right, I'm looking at some of the requirements and things for the Residency Showcase. I find it very, very funny that there is a 12-page rules and regulations document. So before we get into that for a second, let's highlight a couple things because one thing I wanted to note was who should attend. I saw people with badges that said Class of 2027. So there's a note on the ASHP website, and it says, note to P1 to P3 students, the showcase is intended for the 2025 graduating class. The strong demand for residency programs limits the time residency representatives will have to speak with P1 to P3 students. And they ask that they show up in the second half of the session. Now, other fun facts. How much do these showcase booths cost, right? All right, let's talk about it. So the smallest, the 10 by 10 booth, that's $900. The 10 by 20 booth is double that, $1,800. And then the 10 by 40 booth, the biggest one, that is $3,600. And there's a note right underneath it. All booth staff must be registered for midyear individually. Now, rules that I really dislike, there's one big one. And I didn't actually go up and say to them, but I remember walking by one of the residency programs from Maine. And I just remember thinking, man, how great would this be if we had Maine by Noah Khan keeping us company in the background a little bit? So I kind of was like, man, I wonder if we had some background music. So this is a rule. Programs shall not play or perform any music at any time. I think the perform part is interesting. I'd like to know if that had to get added retroactively because of a creative program or not. But that is why you just get to hear the hum of everybody chatting instead of having a little music, which does make sense when you have neighbors next to each other and something like that. So, the Residency Showcase was Monday the 9th from 1 to 4 p.m. So I was kind of waiting outside of the door. I wanted to see what it was like. And my initial thoughts were it was a little less chaotic than I kind of expected, to be honest with you. It was kind of like the eye of the hurricane. There was one or two security guards, and what was comical, and these security guards play no games. We'll talk about them in the full recap, but they are hunting heads if they don't see a badge or things like that. So the security guards were trying to let in the preceptors or people associated with the program while keeping back the potential candidates like students and residents. So trying to keep order there was a little chaotic, and then at 1 o'clock it kind of opened up. So I asked a few of the programs right inside the doors. I was like, okay, what was that like? Because I know, right? I asked them, I was like, I know you watched. So no running. So no running of the bulls, but extremely fast and purposeful walking. And then it was also described as madness. So it felt like I kind of expected like this big line and things, and it was kind of more of a mob outside. Everybody was kind of sitting around and waiting. And the other thing I noticed too, I don't know if there's any people who grew up wrestling or swimming and things, right? But if you did, you know that essentially those meets are really long and your event is generally short. So there's like, a lot of times the teams will have tables and they'll have food and things. And what I noticed was on the other side of the showcase, it was essentially like home base for some of these colleges of pharmacy. It was like you had snacks, there were like pens. It was like a home base. So I thought that was really cool and creative, and that was on the other side. So maybe some of them were trying to go in not to the showcase but to claim their spot. Unclear. But when I picture like the candidates running in, I think of two things. So the first is the classic one, right? Like the Black Friday, where back in the day when people were taking each other's arms off for a plasma TV, you see people kind of running over each other. But the other thing I think of that is a famous clip, if you're a sports person, is the clip of all the people running in to see the Dallas Cowboys because they have like a standing room only section and seeing everybody sprint in. So not as chaotic as I was led to believe. Now, I walked around. And there's essentially like 8. I mean, it's truly hard to conceptualize how big the showcase is if you haven't been there, because you have essentially 8 to 10 rows. There are, I'd probably say 20 to 40 programs, depending on how much in each one. And you're kind of going all down, up and down. So as I'm doing that, I was able to overhear some things. Of course, these are going to be anonymous, but I'm going to tell you the top 3 things that I overheard at the showcase. And I'm going to do them in least to most. I'm going to talk about them in terms of how the least to most funny, in my opinion. So the first one, I do like it here, but not sure I'd do it again. referring to the hospital, the program that they were recruiting candidates for. The next one, I won't lie, residency is hard. If you're wondering, it kind of stopped after that, and I definitely would have liked to hear the next comment, but didn't get to. But the first one is one that really, really made me chuckle. Well, I'm not sure I'm better at making interventions, but I get a lot more opportunities to try and make them. Being essentially honest to a fault in a sense. Now, there were, in an attempt to, catch people's eyes and draw people to your booth, there are a few ideas that people could do. And there were some unique program outfits is how I would describe this. Now, again, remember, there's a 12-page rules and regulations, and it says business dress is preferred. Okay. I'm going to name the three things that stood out to me as unique and almost like a question mark outfits, and we'll get into them a little bit. So one program had Christmas light necklaces. All right, that's a nice little touch. I think it was on top of like shirts or suits. Okay, get that. The next one, matching scrubs. Everyone was wearing matching scrubs. They were figs. I guess we should comment on that, although no free ads. So I understand the idea. It was very eye-catching. I won't say the color or things, but they were all wearing one color, not like a black. And ironically, the other outfit that was extremely unique was sequin jackets. Now, if you don't know what kind of jackets I'm talking about, so for the awards shows, for the clips that have come out on social media and YouTube, you'll see my sequin jacket, or I call it my award show jacket, and they were all wearing that. And somebody kind of pointed this out, and it's something that I hadn't necessarily thought of. One of the RPDs says, okay, like I understand the idea of having matching unique outfits and things, but what do you do if the residents have a PPS interview, or they want to go check out other PPS or PGY2 booths, like showcase booths and things? I thought that was a really, really good point. Obviously, you could change and do things like that, but it just makes things a little more complicated. I saw a lot of people had like their hospital badges. Some people had like QR codes stuffed in their pockets with certain colors. So I get it. We're all trying to draw each other's eyes in. Now, as we're drawing each other's eyes in, badge tags. So I've been looking, and the badge tags, right? You get your badge at a conference, and you have these kind of small tags that say specific things about you, right? Like class of 2024 or residency program director, BPS certified, your pronouns, whatever. So if you're wondering, I kind of looked around, and this might not be the ultimate winner, but the biggest that I saw, 11 individual badge tags. My first thought, man, that's got to be an annoying badge to have. Like, it's just as long, but one half is essentially a feather, and the other half is your actual badge. So shout out to everybody keeping the badge tags alive and well. Now, some giveaways, right? The other thing is you have, in ways to try to kind of entice people to come to visit your booth and things, you have giveaways. And there were a lot of the Post-it notes or pens or stress balls, those sorts of things. One unique one, and leave it to the Children's Hospital to be awesome. I heard multiple people kind of talking about it and how excited they were. They had friendship bracelets. Man, it's T-Swift invading all things. So passing out some friendship bracelets, and of course from the Children's Hospital. And the other thing I noticed, so some of the places were giving away bags, like bags that you would hold things in, for example. And even bags are just thoughts, like the swag in general. Like, I'm kind of wondering, should candidates be a little more sly in terms of how they are able to bring up? Because I don't know if it's the best look, you going up and having 4 bags from like other different hospitals. It might not be a problem. I could just be overthinking it, but that was something that I kind of thought of maybe like folks might want to have a bag that they could put some of their free swag or stuff we all get in. Now, there were some general thoughts that I had. So I haven't been to Midyear in some time. And the conference started off with the Vizient poster session, and that was much more chaotic than I remember. And in that same vein, I was kind of preparing myself for the showcase to be had that same energy. But let's go through my general thoughts, because overall, it was busy, and of course there was, you could tell that the chaos and things was there, but it was not as like tight, packed. You weren't running into people to try to get through the different aisles. And a couple things I saw. One thing, so I think I saw kind of 2 things. One is taking notes while you're talking, right? While you're in the group talking to either the resident or the RPD and things. Now, one person in the ultimate multitasking, iPad note-taking while talking in the group. Now, that was a little different than I expected. And I would also say, though, you might remember more things, because my strategy was always, right, you talk to them and then you like go to the corner and you like furiously write everything down that you remembered or things like that. The other thing that was pointed out, right, so I was talking to some RPDs who have been coming to Midyear for 15, 20, 25, 30 years, and they pointed out a few things to me. So one thing is that the way that you give information out about your program has changed, right? In the beginning, it was folders, handouts, paper, right? And then it went to the flash drives, and then it went to QR codes and things like that. And but one of the big differences is that if you look hard enough, you can find most of this information online or things, these same materials, whereas that wasn't the case back then, right? They didn't have the internet. So if you wanted to know what rotations, who was your preceptor and stuff, right? You had to have the paper or things like that. Whereas, some programs might not have their program information up. I think much, much more are in the line of actually doing that. The other thing that stands out is kind of like the 80-20, 90-10 rule of it sounds like there were some really, really good candidates that came with great questions and were really well prepared. But remember the saying, right? Everybody says, well, let's go back, right? Let's talk through some mid-year tips and general concepts or themes, right? And one of them is this conference is for you, the applicant or candidate, not necessarily for the programs. So why is that important? Well, if you go to talk to these candidates, or if you're a candidate going to talk to the programs, you got to have some good questions. You got to have some questions lined up, right? And you don't necessarily want to just have, because I'm going to let learners in on a little secret. Most RPDs or preceptors know canned questions from non-canned questions. I'm not saying that that's good or bad, but having general questions when you go up to places is good, especially if these are local places, things that and you want to ask specific things, because this is for you, right? This is for you to learn more information and figure out, hey, is this going to be one of the places I apply on Forecast? Am I going to pay this application fee, right? So having those good questions is important. It only helps you, right? If you don't have any, it's not like it maybe necessarily is going to hurt you, but you kind of go up to the program, say, hey, what questions do you have? And when there's not really any, or it's not a great question, kind of gets a little awkward, because then the thing is like, okay, well, how interested are you in the program if you asked me one question about, what are you looking for in a resident? That sort of thing. So remember, this day is about the candidate, and so you want to come prepared. So, ideally having a list, you can go on the website and they have a PDF of the floor plan, so you can see what programs are going to be there. And the thing that stood out was a lot of the programs were in order. So like all the Maryland programs were in one kind of area, all the, Florida ones, et cetera. So, and obviously not all of them, but I thought that from who shared the time slot for the showcase, it felt like it was grouped a little bit to location, which from a candidate's perspective feels ideal and something that you'd probably want. So having a plan, definitely, and going to some of those things. The other thing I would say is, don't be afraid to kind of walk around and see if there's programs or things that, if they're in an area or things that interest you, because it can be hard to truly sort out all of the programs from a kind of Forecast website, a residency website. Sometimes it can help to see and interact with the preceptors. Do they have an energy and an atmosphere or things that you feel like you might thrive from? It's something that you would like, or maybe the opposite, right? Maybe you talk to them and it's like, okay, I'm glad I talked to them. I'm not sure that's what I'm looking for, things. So that is one great tip. So number 2, have water. The water jugs quickly got ran out. And so it's one of those too, when you need water and you can't find it, trying to talk and do that stuff can be really challenging. So have that water bottle, have a snack. 1 to 4 is, I don't know what a better time is, but 1 to 4 is a challenging time. And I think 3 hours it's funny. You have 2 groups of people, right? The preceptors, the RPDs. I think if you polled them, every single one of them would say, let's make this a little shorter, maybe 2 hours. And I overheard multiple people, multiple candidates talking about how they wish this was 4 hours and they had a hard time doing and seeing and getting to all the things that they wanted to do. Number 2, right? Dress for the job you want, not the job you have. Now, I don't think you necessarily need 3-piece suits or anything like that. But you want your dress to not be your dress, like what you're wearing, to not be memorable in a bad way. I'm not saying I necessarily saw that from candidates, but that's always something, right? Like if in doubt, be sure that you err on the side of business instead of casual when you're thinking that business casual. Wear good shoes. It is a lot of walking. The hall is very big, so maybe bring extra shoes if your dress shoes are very uncomfortable, or try to wear your comfortable ones, because that can be something, it's Monday, conference goes till Thursday. We can't be giving you a limp or starting to rub a foot raw and 2 more days in there. That would be no bueno. The other thing is everyone's wearing badges and things. So if there's somebody you want to specifically go talk to, try to find them. But I would say try to, you kind of have to land the plane of, you don't want to interrupt, but you also want to be, show that you want to kind of interact with them. So those are a few of my tips, but I wouldn't say that they're groundbreaking or anything really remarkable by that. But I thought it was just important because this will come out Monday night. We got 2 more showcase sessions, so 2 more opportunities to set people up for success. So one of the things that we did as I went around, and someone said you might have the easiest job with the showcase of not really you're not trying to recruit people or trying to go somewhere. And that's that may be true. But what I was doing, I was asking people anonymously, use 1 word to describe the showcase. So I think it's kind of split 50-50 in terms of the overall, I guess, energy or thoughts of that. So let's get into it. I'm going to kind of start with the ones that you would say are more of the positive side, and then we'll go to ones that might be considered a little more of the this is tough. So informative, inspiring, pleasant, collaborative, refreshing, energizing, social, interactive, and electric.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. There's nothing sweeter than baking cookies during the holidays. With Prime, I get all my ingredients delivered right to my door, fast and free, no last-minute store trips needed. And of course, I blast my favorite holiday playlist on Amazon Music. It's the ultimate soundtrack for creating unforgettable memories. From streaming to shopping, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into.
This episode is brought to you by McDonald's. Did you know that 1 in 8 Americans have worked at McDonald's? From musicians to astronauts, even McDonald's franchise owners and their own corporate leadership, they're all connected by the opportunities that McDonald's provides. In fact, 71% of McDonald's former crew said they gained career-building skills, and the majority of the 1 in 8 would recommend working at McDonald's. McDonald's takes people further. Learn more at mcdonalds1in8.com.
Now, those are more of the positive sides of things, and I want to highlight a couple of them right in this section. And the thing to me, when I talk to some RPDs or even some preceptors, the energizing and refreshing were 2 things. And I think what they meant by that when I asked them was they said, when you talk through your program, your hospital, it can reignite why you like something, why you like to do what you do. Or, you have candidates asking really good questions, or somebody that feels like they're going to be a really good fit. And it just kind of reminds you why you do all of this. And it can be very interactive, right? You get to talk and network with tons and tons of people. And that's why it's social. And I'm guessing the person that said energizing is an extrovert, right? Because like me, that's where I get my energy from. Now, we'll go into the less positive phrases, and I would say those may be some of the less extroverty responses. But the other thing was inspiring and informative, the inspiring piece kind of being that same thing of energizing and refreshing. But the informative piece was something that I think if you come to the showcase prepared, that you can get a lot of information to help make decisions about your future, and it can be really helpful. But let's kind of get into the other side of things. So long, stampede. 3 separate times was told the term overwhelming, madness, chaotic or chaos, muggy, unbelievable, which I feel like you could take good or bad, just like eye-opening, you could also take good or bad, busy, long, Black Friday, which I think for those of us who've been in practice and you think of mid-year, that's one of the things your mind goes to. And then a blank show. You all can imply what the blank is there, but what stood out to me was, the negative or kind of the less positive responses I would say I expected, but to have them be essentially split 50-50 between both sides, because I asked candidates as well as the programs themselves. So having it be kind of split, I think shows that there are a lot of people who gain true value from the showcase and from mid-year in general. Now, there are still some questions that I still have, right? What is the ideal time? Is it 1 to 4 when people are sleepy? Is it 8 to 11? Man, the 8 a.m. one seems tough, but I'm not sure if the one's better. Is 3 hours the ideal length, right? Now, the other thing, right, is when is the best time to go in? So the guidance was that if you're P1 to P3, go in the last half. So I'm not sure I know the answer, because I will say in the beginning, like, it was more crowded, and especially the bigger programs, right? If you're looking for the academic medical center that's got double-digit residents, a lot of those were filled for most of the day. But towards kind of that last hour, the last 90 minutes, even some of the bigger programs, the candidates started coming less. And I feel like from a candidate perspective, I actually feel like towards the end might be a good time, because you might get more real answers. I felt like people had their guards down a little bit. It felt like, they're relaxed, they've talked, they may be a little bit tired. But that being said, right, you're balancing what you want to do at the conference with your schedule and things. So I don't know if I necessarily know the right answer. Now, one tip that someone gave that I'll share is a really great advice is, if you're one of the first people in, right, if you're kind of, it opens at 1, you're in there at 1:01, don't necessarily start from the front. Walk all the way back to the end of an aisle and go back. And that's good advice, because no one else is doing that. And so that can be a way that you're able to talk to programs before they get really busy, because that can be a challenge, right? You go up to a program and everybody's talking. Not only everybody's talking, they're in these groups of 3 and 4. And on one hand, I get it that the candidates and things, they want to be purposeful and they're listening. But just remember that, everyone's trying to get info. So opening up circles, including people, is not a bad thing. And you getting a one-on-one, discussion in the showcase is not different than you doing 1 to 2 to 1 to 3. Kind of make it a little more collaborative. But for as hard of a time as I might, I'll just say I might give mid-year and the Residency Showcase, I have to say there isn't a meeting where I have met more pharmacists or seen more pharmacists compared to almost everywhere else. I've run into, I ran into my old RPD from my PGY2 critical care program, ran into my old where I used to work, that program, getting to meet multiple people. So there's obviously a reason why this is the biggest meeting for pharmacists, and why the showcase, right, initially called the Residency Preceptor Showcase, now the Residency Showcase, has been around this whole time, right? And that is a testament to the networking power and things that it has. You have all these programs and people in the same place, recruiting, right? Both PPS and the showcase. Now, I would have liked to give a PPS review as well. I wanted to kind of go through and kind of feel that nervous energy, and we'll on the full recap, and there'll be a couple special guests. I'm not gonna reveal just yet, but it's gonna be a really, really fun full recap, and we'll get into that a little bit. But I'd kind of be curious the differences in the feelings or things of PPS versus the Residency Showcase. But as we kind of close out, I greatly appreciated everybody who came up and said hi. There were multiple people that I've either worked with, collaborated with virtually, or that are friends of the pod, listeners. It always makes my day when people come up to me. So that's always encouraged and appreciated. And that was a really cool thing of walking around to these different programs. Now, that being said, there were some fun things of I would see people that I knew or I wanted to say hi to, and I'd be kind of waiting for them, and got to shout out they were residents, and I got to shout them out because they were so on it. Everybody kind of wanting to give their spiel of their program. And so, people would ask, oh, hey, try to introduce. And I would just say, hey, I'm trying to say hi to so-and-so. I'm not necessarily a candidate, but lay your spiel on me, right? And it was actually just cool to see. One of the things that I left with is I find it very frustrating when people talk negatively about the profession and the future of the profession. And what you feel here when you're around so many learners and the future of is just like hope, optimism, and growth. And it's so cool to see the looks in eyes and happiness and asking all these great things. And yeah, are there some people that can make the showcase harder? Of course, right? That's the way it is in everything. But the argument for having some benefit here, I can understand that depending on what program you're at. And we'll have 3 things to remember. So number 1, no running. Number 2, be nice. Use your manners, please, thank you, that sort of thing. And number 3, be prepared. Have a couple questions, right? If you really are interested in some of these residency programs, the idea of having 1 to 2 questions should be on the easier side. And this will just kind of help you as you're preparing for actual interview season. But that being said, the showcase was fun. My feet hurt, but I'm excited. Now, the other thing I got to let the listeners know, I'll be back for all the showcases. So if you see me walking around, come say hi, but we won't necessarily do another showcase recap. But excited. We're about halfway through this 2024 ASHP Midyear. The meeting's been awesome. Great seeing people, and excited for the fun times to continue. So remember, if you see me, come say hi. Typically, especially if I have a bag, I'll have some swag that I can give you. If I'm out, come say hi, please. Love to take a selfie, say hi, those sorts of things. If not, at PharmacyToDose, TO2Dose, go to the website PharmacyToDose.com, or send me an old-fashioned email, PharmacyToDose@gmail.com. But until next time, I'm Nick Peters. This is Pharmacy to Dose, the Critical Care Podcast.